This meeting is being recorded.
I've never heard it say that out loud before, but that was on your computer. That's funny. Hi, everyone. This is Please Don't Kick Me Out, the only inclusive podcast about imposter syndrome. We are coming to you live from Oahu today and also Florida. My guest today is one of my favorite TikTok creators who doesn't have enough followers. Please follow them. They are amazing. This is my friend, Pam.
Hello. Hello.
Okay. So when I first started doing this podcast in 2020, I never expected that I would be cherry picking people off of TikTok because I thought TikTok was stupid. Now I couldn't live without the people and the connections I've made. So I just want to say mahalo nui to you for being on the podcast today. Do you want to give like kind of your elevator pitch, like who you are, what you do, etc.?
Yeah. So my name is Pam Swift-Brooks. I am a 5-year improviser. I was doing live shows. I teach improv for my home theater in Houston, Texas. And then the pandemic hit. I had, before that, I was a zookeeper for 20 years and kind of was finding myself kind of unhappy towards the end there, and was like, I need something fun and something to kind of come back to myself. So I started doing improv and really found my home there. And so I've been doing that for a while. And then of course the pandemic hit. I took a bunch of classes on Zoom, had an awesome experience doing that. I was able to train with different teachers from different theaters. It was a dream come true. And then just TikTok, and that's kind of helping me hone my craft.
Yeah, I love that. I've told this story a few times on the podcast, but I'm gonna tell it again. Now, you're in for a treat. So improv, let's talk about improv for a second. So when I was 23, I had a job. So for anyone that's new here, because they want to listen to Pam, hi, my name is Bianca Wolwick. My pronouns are she and they. I'm non-binary. I'm also queer as fuck. So, hey, I'm also on TikTok at Powerline World Tour. And Pam is at Swift Brooks. Of course, all of that information will be in the description of the comments. If you're listening to this in your earbuds, like, subscribe, rate, share. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, rate, share. Anyway, I was working at this company called Tanasi Foods, and I'm gonna name them. I don't care. I don't have an NDA. And I had this boss named Neil, and I just gotten out of a horrible breakup. I was 23 years old. I was like living out of a suitcase with my parents. I was a promotional marketing director, a manager at 23, baby 23 years old. Had no business having that job. Of course, I did get fired. I do say that it's contract on my job. But anyway, I had to travel basically the United States for this stupid ass company, which is Biggs Sunflower Seeds and Duke's Smoked Meats. Please don't sue me. So I had this boss, Neil, who I at the time, I didn't realize how introspective this was going to be, but he basically gave me my 2 weeks notice and was like, you are, because I didn't know I had, another thing about me is I'm neurodivergent. So I have ADHD, and I was diagnosed when I was 31. So almost 31. Yeah. I'm gonna be 34. Yeah. So it's been 3 years. And so for me, because I didn't know that, and there's a lot of markers of ADHD. I've had a lot of people on the podcast that actually talk about neurodivergence, ADHD, and late term women identifying, even though I am non-binary, I still have women parts, right? And so just because I have a they attached to it doesn't mean that I don't have a vagina. Okay. Anyway, so sorry. Oh, Pam's like, what? This is the first time we meet on the camera, and you are wild. So improv. So he basically said, this is your 2 weeks notice and you have to take an improv class. So what did I do? I booked an improv class at the Bovine Comedy Theater in Denver, Colorado. And I was in the baby basics class. Okay. And I was traveling from Boulder, Colorado, where my parents lived near. And then at work, I would leave work and I'd go to Denver. And of course I'd smash a few beers before going in, because the people are wild in the first, this is like me having a podcast. It's probably so funny. If Neil ever does listen to this, I want to say, thank you. You were not a great boss though. However, I learned a lot from this experience. So I started this improv class, and he was like, yeah, we'll pay for it. They didn't pay for it. I had to pay $200 out of pocket on my tiny ass salary to do this stupid class. And everyone was awful. I'm sorry. I know I'm an inclusive podcast, but like everyone was awful because you've taught improv. So you understand that like when you start at the base level, people think it's comedy stand up. They think it's like these things, but it's not, right? So I took 3 classes out of an 8-week course essentially, and I got fired. And like, and he was like, you booked it without my permission. I was going to tell you to go somewhere closer, cheaper, whatever. And they wiped my computer before I even got a chance to log out of any of my personal accounts. And then the CEO looked at my personal accounts, and I'm still mad about it. So thank you so much for that. Anyway, that's my improv claim to fame. I've taken 3 classes and I'm not an expert. And I have a podcast now. So suck my dick.
There you go.
So I love that. And then another thing you talked about was being a zookeeper, which I find fascinating. I really wanted to be a marine biologist, and I didn't. I didn't because science and math and also ADHD later. So I'm excited to learn more about you. Another thing you are as well, and I'm not sure if you touched on it, is that you are a combat veteran, correct?
Yes. Well, not combat. I was 1995, we went to Panama. So we were like relieved full-time MPs there. So that's like the only action I've seen. But yeah. So but I'm not.
By MP, you mean military police, right?
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Okay. Just want to make sure because I am a military spouse. Yes. My partner has been in the Navy for 17, going on 18 years in the Navy. I live in base housing currently on Oahu, which we've never done before. So yeah, that's cool. So how long did you serve?
6 years.
6 years.
Yep. In the Army National Guard.
So I have a lot of friends that have done Army National Guard, and I have so much respect for you. So freaking mahalo. Thank you for your service. I know it sounds weird. Never know anyone says that, but I respect the crap out of any person who is a woman who is willing to go through that bullshit. So.
Yeah. It was definitely a lot of stereotypes and things like that. So it was either you were gay or you were a slut, and it's like, I am neither of that. But it's like, yeah, I'm different, but I'm not, like you can't sandwich me in,
Oh, so. Absolutely. I've interviewed a lot of female veterans, even so much as recently in season 3. I will link those for anyone that's on YouTube. If you're listening in your earbuds, I'm so sorry, man. Like you're going to have to just join me on YouTube. The link is going to be in the description. Mahalo. Anyway, this is a podcast about imposter syndrome. And of course you had imposter syndrome when I asked you to be on it.
Yes.
But the funny thing is I've been wanting to ask you to be on for like years. So we've known each other probably almost 2 going on 3 years through TikTok, I would have to say. And you create a lot of really great content. And now that I know that your background is so diverse, all of it makes sense. Like, I'm like mind blown. So I love it. Are you ready to hop in?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So we went through the elevator pitch. All right. Okay. First question. Do you feel like you have it all figured out?
No, absolutely not. I still take classes. I'm in one right now and it's level 1. My husband's like, why do you continue to like start at the bottom floor? And for me, it's really just, I enjoy the process. I enjoy watching people learn and to see them get that aha moment. And it's fun to, I'm sure you've heard of the concept of the curse of knowledge. Mm-hmm. When you do something for so long, you forget what it is to suck, and what it is to learn this. So for me, I kind of try to do that to kind of break the curse of knowledge. It's like, yeah, I remember this. And when I see people do it, these guys are brand new. They've never done it before. So they're making all of the classic basic mistakes. And it just drills into my head that I'm like, yep, that's current. Yeah, I mean, everybody does that. So it's like a universal thing. So
that's what I will also say about people who have had such a vast career. So for like my background's completely in marketing, but right now I'm toying on the idea of getting my security clearance and then making buku dollars. Okay. Yeah. Like I market myself, like we're always marketing, right? And the curse of knowledge, like I love learning, especially as someone who's neurodivergent and neurospicy, as we call it on TikTok, because TikTok bans everything. especially from that perspective, like I love learning about things. And my husband also has ADHD and he's neurodivergent, and our ADHD styles are a lot different. I've had ADHD coach Ron on the podcast, of course, which if you're on YouTube right now, I'm linking it right here. Here it is. Boop. And if you're not, that's okay. Ron actually did a profile of like my attachment styles and like how I learn. And because I am a Gemini astrologically, I definitely have a lot of those key markers because I'm also, while I am a woman and someone who is queer and non-binary and also neurodivergent, I feel like I don't let those be my entire diagnosis of who I am. Like, because I'm Bianca, like that is who I am. I've always been, I came out kicking and screaming at 9 pounds, 10 ounces. And my mom will never let me forget that. But I'm just happy that you agreed to be on here. And I think your thirst of knowledge is absolutely admirable.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. So what's the class you're taking? Is it improv?
Yeah, it's basically, I started out with long form improv, which is more scene based. And I am taking classes in short form improv, which is kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Mm-hmm. And which is interesting that the theater that I'm currently training at is where Wayne Brady got his start. The guy who's like pretty famous for being an improviser and everything like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. There's photos of him everywhere. It's like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah. But, yeah. Well, Wayne Brady, I do have a story about Wayne Brady. So my friend was on Let's Make a Deal because I live in San Diego. I own a home in San Diego as a military spouse. We own a home in San Diego. At the time of recording it, this is Thursday, February 16th. So about a year ago, Courtney, who's been on my podcast, who's a lovely, lovely melanin Black queen, trans, who I've known throughout her journey since the pandemic. My husband paid her to do a private drag show in the gosh darn heat. About a year into her transitioning from, dead name to Courtney. And Courtney is still doing drag, and she does all sorts of stuff around San Diego. Can't say enough good things there. They've also been on the podcast. I won't be linking it because it was before I did video. However, Courtney was on Let's Make a Deal. And Courtney won, I think she won like $50,000 because she was smart. When Wayne Brady hosts Let's Make a Deal, right? I grew up, of course, watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? I, of course, watched the Wayne Brady show because we didn't have cable. So I know a lot about Wayne Brady, but it's interesting because every comedy place that you go or every theater that you go to, they love to just like idolize who has been where. And it's like, it's almost like imposter syndrome with that, right? Like, and I think we've been talking about imposter syndrome without me really defining the definition for anyone who's new here and doesn't know what this term means. So imposter syndrome is basically the feeling of other than, or not fitting in, or when are they going to find out that I'm a fraud? And it's not in the DSM-V. It's not a psychological, thing that you can look it up in a manual and be told you have it. It's more of a self-esteem shrouded thing where when someone, especially women I've found, have a lot more imposter syndrome, but that's not to say that men don't. Men just are men. And I'm not trying to be misogynistic or patriarchal by talking about that. Just the point is that like, as this is an inclusive podcast, I believe everyone can be on this podcast and share their story wherever they're coming from. And it's all about how you spin it, which is the same way that improv is. So that's what podcasting is to me. It's just an improvisational conversation where I have no idea what you're going to say. So like, I might have a question and answer form, intake form on the back end, but it doesn't mean that I know who you are or what you do or where the conversation is going to go. And that's why I think improv is so cool. So to go back to the point of, putting people on pedestals, that almost makes it feel unobtainable for someone or gives them like that's going to be me. Well, it's not. So like, I don't know what to tell you because like, you really have to put the work in to get there. So yeah, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So, we talked about that. Okay. Here is the big cheese, the conversation, the piece de resistance of the podcast. And I can actually recite this question without looking at it because that's how long I've been doing this. Okay. All right.
That's awesome.
Me. Do you feel like you fit in or suffer from imposter syndrome? In what ways? And what does imposter syndrome mean to you?
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like probably that is part of the reason why I definitely have imposter syndrome, is that I'm constantly training and feel like I suck still, and I mean
You
everybody has
suck.
good and everybody has their good and bad days,
Yeah.
and definitely, I know where my sore spots are and where I need to work on them. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's some things that I am good at and some things that I'm not good at, but it's nice when somebody says, "Oh, you're really good at that," and I'm like, "Really? You think so?" It's like,
Yeah.
so that's, but yeah, yeah, I feel like that is definitely something that represents me, and I think just overall my entire life I've felt that way. You know what I mean? Even as a zookeeper, it's like I'm doing this thing, and it's like, I know I went to school, I know all these animal facts and things like that, but it's like when you get in the field, it's different than what you learn. So it's like you're kind of, everything is like improv, like you said. You know what I mean? Life basically is.
Life is improv.
Yep.
Like, and you know what I've learned, because I did share with you, and I have shared this, but because I'm sure some people are coming here to listen to you and hear your story, if they know you or whatever, not to be dismissive, but if they don't know me, they don't know my backstory. So as you're sharing yours, I'll share mine. I equally feel the same way you do. I think life is completely improvisational. I'm a military spouse. I am a late career, as they call it, military spouse. I met my husband when he was my husband's been in since 2005.
Okay.
Because he joined at 18. He worked at Knott's Berry Farm before that, and lifeguarding and all of that. Played water polo in high school. My husband's from Long Beach, California. Cool. And I worked at Soak City. And like, he was like, if I didn't join the Navy, I didn't apply myself in school, I would have never. He's so smart. He now has a master's because of the all of this stuff. And I met him after he'd commissioned. So he was in for 8 years, was going to get out, had a job on the other side, and then was like, yeah, you know what? I'll apply for OCS, Officer Candidate School, for anyone that doesn't understand military jargon. So he is what they would call a Mustang. He's an O3E. He was getting out. They were like, he was living in Italy. They're like, you got to sell your car. He had like a Camaro, I think, or no, wait, a Thunderbird, Firebird, something. He's going to kill me. He's not going to remember. I don't remember details like that. Cars, what are they? Who knows?
Yeah.
They're like, you have 2 weeks to report to Newport, Rhode Island. Get your pack out scheduled, all that stuff, because the military loves to play dumb with money. And so he sold his car for €1. Yeah.
Oh my God.
€1 in Naples, Italy. Actually, no, he was living in Pozzuoli. And which is it's still in southern Italy. I don't know geography. I went to Sylvan. Anyway, so he had his first officer tour, where he was here on Oahu, and he was a single man on Oahu. And then he took orders to go to Denver to do joint billet for Buckley Air Force Base, or sorry, now it's Buckley Space Force Base. Can't do that. And I had never been on a military base, knew people that were military in high school, but being from so I was born in Minnesota and then moved to Colorado when I was 10. And then I went to school in Greeley, Colorado. I didn't understand what ROTC was, ROTC. I didn't understand that there was officers and enlisted. I had no idea what I didn't know. And so I felt a great deal of imposter syndrome coming into a wardroom, which is a leadership room in the Navy, of this joint billet command where everyone was a seasoned spouse and I was a baby spouse. And before you get married too, there's like this inherent, like, oh, well, you're just a girlfriend. Right. Like, and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to get married to him. So like, and then once you get married, oh, well, no one told you, blah, 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 so like there's imposter syndrome, even in being in my marriage. Right. Like, and when I I still feel it. And I actually had my trans friend, Ryan, that I met recently, in the car with me the other day to go get gas at this Marine housing base. And I like pull up there and we both get nervous and we're like, Yeah, oh, you can't see this if you're listening in your AirPods, but I'm handing my ID to the gate guard, which is what you have to do to go get gas, because whatever. And it's just housing, but they have a gate guard. And I go, hey, how's it? Which is like the right thing to say, because the guy looked like he wanted to kick my ass. And then I go to the MX, which is the Marine Navy exchange, whatever you call it, the MX. And then also the PX is where you would go with the Air Force. All you need to know is it's duty free. Yes. Okay. Like, we get cheaper gas, we get cheaper groceries, we get duty free stuff. But it's a pain in the ass. And at the end of the day, is it really that worth it? I don't know. But I went there because it's the cheapest gas, right? Because it's a walk. So I'm like, bloop, go pull up, get my gas. And Ryan turns to me and is like, B, do you feel imposter syndrome still when you give your ID? And I'm like, yeah, actually I do, because I always feel it, right? Like, I always feel it going onto a base. I'm like, I shouldn't be here. So it took me a long time and in my own mental health. So my husband and I, we got married, and then we moved to San Diego. And I was working as a marketing director for Lawyers Title San Diego. And then I got laid off with the pandemic, and I started this podcast, and now we're here. But we restarted their ship's family readiness group for this deployment, and thank goodness we did. So I've done a lot of active service for spouse stuff, like family readiness groups, Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, and other stuff. And that's not even important. I'm not going to humble brag and sit here and like make myself feel better. The point is that the spouses get treated poorly, because a lot of service members, there's this big machismo where they're like, oh, well, you're only getting married to get off base. And it's like, no, he's an officer. Like, I don't mean to throw rank and title around, but he's an officer. And like, if he wanted to, he would, right? So we've been married for 6 years as of last Friday. Wait, we've been dating for 6 years as of last Friday. We'll be married for 6 years, October 13th, which is the Navy's birthday. So we didn't have to go to the Navy ball ever again. Yeah. So that was what we did it. And for me, like, moving out to Oahu, I had the worst mental breakdown I've ever had in my life, where my medications were off. It was peak pandemic. And I had traveled to Oahu before. We came here for our honeymoon because the place that he works for and the clearance that he had did not allow us to go where we needed to go. We wanted to go to Iceland, couldn't go there. So, not that Iceland was like closing the borders. It's just like, when you are doing the work that he did and he no longer does, you unfortunately, the Navy will come in and be like, military in general will be like, yeah,
yeah, it's like, gonna control your life just a little bit more.
Exactly. And so I don't want to sound like I'm not grateful, right? Like, I don't ever want to sound like I'm not grateful, because like, there's just so many resources. But if you were to ask me, if a woman was to ask me, would you join as me? And I would say no, because I don't like being yelled at. And two, I wouldn't join because I have seen it from both sides and I don't like it. And when they didn't let my husband retire and he had to find 2 loopholes, so he applied for Space Force and he applied for TAR, and they were like, because he failed to select twice, which is Navy's, once you're in leadership, and in general, the military is up or out, right? They don't want people sitting around, twiddling their thumbs anymore. But there's people in his community that basically, like, half of his community was like, cool. So I double FOSS, failed to select. And now I'm 17, I'm 13, 14, 15, 17, 20, 25 years in, like, all this shit. Right. And it's like, oh, no, we don't want you anymore. All because some little paper pusher at a small level said, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a similar issue whenever I was getting ready to get out. They were wanting to, like, promote me, but I had to go through this certain school, PLDC, to become a sergeant. And, with me being in college at the time and everything like that, it was like, oh, can I go here? Can I go there at that time? Whatever. And they were like, no. And then right as I'm about ready to leave, they're like, oh, we can put you in whenever. And I'm like, really?
Could
but
you?
yeah, yeah. Exactly. And not only that, but yeah, I totally get it. As far as, like, you asked me earlier, my combat veteran, I'm like, I feel like, no, absolutely not, because I did not serve anywhere other than Panama.
Well, you did serve. That's the thing, is you did. Like,
yeah, but I like, you were talking about imposter, you know what I mean? So it's like, I felt whenever I was getting ready to get out, I remember was not sure if I was considered a veteran because I hadn't been deployed anywhere other than Canada. So that for me, and one guy with a sergeant in my unit was like, absolutely, you are a veteran. Don't you ever say you're not one. And I was like, oh God, so it just, for me, I being naive at the time. And it was just like, I assumed you had to have served, because when I first was I was in high school when Desert Storm happened. Mm-hmm. And so when I joined, it was after that. And then everywhere was a sea of sergeants, and they all had been to Iraq and everything. And it was like, I felt like, oh God, I don't deserve to be
here. Right. So, and I've heard similar stuff from other females too, that I have interviewed, or even spouses of what their spouses have said. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of my friends are helicopter spouse, pilot spouses, aviation spouse, because it's the Navy. And I have a lot of friends that have served in the National Guard. In fact, all of my friends that have served in the National Guard are women.
Interesting.
And one of them I'll tell you about offline, because I didn't know you were National Guard. In fact, I didn't even know you were a veteran, because until it was Veterans Day and you sent me that post this last year. Yeah. And that's when I really was like, okay, we have to be friends, because I need to know more about this story, because I have such empathy for women who have served, and you served at such a different time. So to go back to your point with the, Desert Storm and Iraq and all of those things, and this does not need to be a completely military focused podcast. I want to talk about zookeeping after this, but the last thing I'll say is, you're right. You absolutely served, just like, and then not to make it about spouses, but like there's this thing called dependo, right? Where it's like, oh, the dependopotamus, blah, blah, blah. And it's super fucked up. And I have an unpopular opinion, and I'll if I remember, I'll say it later, but basically, we have served too, just as they have served, from the alone time to the all the bullshit, to the cleaning the uniform, to accidentally washing a stylus pin in the uniform one time and then being banned from cleaning uniforms. Yeah, that happened. Wow. Oh. Yeah. So from my husband, we have absolutely served as well. And so for spouses, a lot of the time we'll diminish ourselves in the sense of, and spouses, when I say spouses, I don't mean females. There are male spouses, there are trans spouses, there are non-binary spouses, there are every couple you can think of. When Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed, and thank God for it. It really opened up the mindset of things, right? So, so when people tell me like, oh, like, thank you for your service to me, I'm like, what service? But then I have to think about it. I'm like, wait a second. My husband was on a deployment where 9 baby Marines and one of them was a corpsman, died. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I was alone. That was the most traumatic thing some of his sailors ever went through, some of it, because they were young, right? They joined, they're like, I'm going to see the world. And then the pandemic was like, nope. But anyway, the point is that I feel imposter syndrome as a spouse. I feel imposter syndrome as a marketer. I feel imposter syndrome as a podcaster. I feel imposter syndrome in general. And so to go back to that point of, we're just doing improv. I love that. We're just doing improvisation for life. Like, I want to put that on a shirt, a mug, everything. Yeah. I love that. So let's talk about your zookeeping career. I love that you've done that. I know that you own a bird.
Yes.
Yeah. And the bird is down in Florida currently with you.
Yes. I have her outside, so she won't be very loud.
Oh, that's fine. How old's the bird and what kind of bird?
She's 40 years old. She's an African gray parrot. I got her from a sanctuary when we first moved to Texas. My husband was a scientist and would move us every so often. So I would kind of have to quit my jobs and follow. And sometimes I would go somewhere without a job, so I'd have to wait for something. So I'd have to wait for something to show up. And so, when we first moved to Texas, I did not have a job yet. So I was volunteering at a parrot sanctuary, and I was put in because of my experience as a zookeeper. They were like, oh, you know how to take care of these birds. So we're just going to stick you in here with the African grays. They tend to be moody and, not like everyone. So I was like, yeah, no problem. Started working in there, and immediately this bird that I have now, was showing me all kinds of affection, courtship feeding me and everything like that. So I was like, and I asked at the end of the day, I was like, what's everyone's story? So she told me, and then I go, how about this bird? And she goes, that's D-Bird. We call her, her name's Delilah, but we call her D-Bird. And she's like, she hates everyone. And I'm like, Not me. She's been courtship feeding me since I got here. And they were like, oh my God, you need to take her.
You're like, take her away. We do not want this bitch.
This demon bird. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So what was so did you specialize in aviation, or like, did you just kind of fall into it? Sorry, aviation.
Oh yeah. No, you're good. You're good. So growing up, my sister, who was 8 years older than me, had birds. And so I just kind of fell in love with them, and, always had pets and things like that. And, I interned at my zoo, my first zoo in Connecticut was Beardsley Zoo. And, I think it was there maybe 7-8 months, and then a position opened and I got hired, which was awesome. So I graduated college and then boom, got a job immediately, which was amazing. And so I got put in the farmyard, which was like the best of everything, because it had domestics, it had wild birds of prey, it had chickens, it had all kinds of birds. And so I was in heaven, not only with taking care of the cows and pigs and things like that. We also had like a surplus area where we had a rhea, which was amazing. I was so in love with that bird. So yeah, I really was lucky in that first zoo, and just really enjoyed working with birds, always have. And then as I got into my career further, I really honed in on birds, and was really lucky for that.
That's so cool. I have to share that I'm terrified of them. Just kidding, I'm not. But I personally have found greater affection because one of my friends, the friend that I'm going to tell you about offline, my friend Ryan, different Ryan, not the one in the car. She was she is currently being processed from the National Guard because she just went through cancer, and probably National Guard's fault, to be honest. Anyway, yes, the chemicals you've been exposed to, girl.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, so they got chickens, right? And it changed my tune. I helped raise these baby chicks from like the tractor feed store to watching them happen. And then now on Oahu, there's chickens everywhere. And I'm not afraid of them necessarily because whatever, like they're interesting. And there's so many birds out here. Because for anyone that's never been to Hawaii, I want to just put a kibosh on anyone who's like colonization. Yeah, I'm aware of it. Okay. And I'm leaving the second they say goodbye. Like, I'm like, peace out. But one of my favorite things to do is to sit in my backyard or on my lanai and just listen to all of the bird calls. Now, my husband makes the joke that he thinks that they're just screaming like, hey, let's fuck. And I don't know if that's true, but I think it's funny. So I'm going to repeat it. And I apologize if anyone's under the age of 18 and the F words really, I'm married to a sailor, so I get his pass, and she served, so she can say whatever she wants to. The market is explicit. Anyway, there's some beautiful birds on the island. If you've never been, for anyone who's listening and want to come, and you're scared to come here, I just have to say there's a couple of rules. One, never touch a hanu. A hanu is a sea turtle. Don't you ever, ever, ever touch a hanu. 2, elephant monk seals. They are endangered and protected. And if you touch one of those, a local will hit you with a slipper, which is And finally, the other point of interest I will say is leave it how you found it.
Yeah. Make
sure that you go further than the tourist places. Shop Kama'aina local. And also the final thing I always have to say on behalf of Hawaiians, and Hawaiian means native Hawaiian, of the land. Kama'aina also means of the land, but it means local. And you do not get to ask for a Kama'aina discount if you do not live here, period. So those are the rules. Any questions?
Those are awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm here till fall. You are more than welcome to come visit. I would love to have you. That. Please. Yes. And we can go bird watching because I want to go bird watching, whale watching. I want to go turtles. I want to do all this stuff. Anyway, that's exciting. You please, we have each other's number. Please text me all of the photos of this bird because I want to know everything about it. I think parrots and African lovebirds are so fascinating. So I could talk about it forever. The point is that I'm no longer that afraid of birds. I think they're very interesting, and Hawaii is the reason. There's just so many, and they're so colorful. So in Hawaii, and people are probably like, why is this white bitch saying Hawaii? That's how you say it. So like, be respectful. So in Hawaii, they're ceremonially, they have these like plume things. I don't know what they're called, but it's plume things. And they have these beautiful feathers on them. And those feathers are not dyed. They come from the native birds. And so I encourage anyone, if you're coming here on Oahu, especially, which is actually where Honolulu is. I'm sure a lot of people, if you've seen Pearl Harbor, then you know about where we are. And also fuck Captain Cook. Anyway, so inside of this, like you'll see these beautiful like ceremonial plumes, and those feathers come from very native and very endangered birds, and the ones that are on display the Bishop Museum, inside the Bishop Museum, which is a great place to go. Those are relics, and they are massive, and they're ceremonial, and they represent so many things. And the bird, you can learn all about the bird at Kualoa Ranch, which is was given to, I don't know the back history of it enough to speak on it, so just don't quote me, but Kualoa Ranch is where most things are filmed. It is a sanctuary. It's protected land. It's also owned land, and it was given by a queen. So it's a huge part of Vaimanalo, which is a beautiful part of the island. I very much encourage people to go and see it and go to Kualoa Ranch. Make sure that you take the Kama'aina local tour. And if you have a tour guide there, the other thing I'll say is you have to tip your natives, tip your native drivers, please, please, please. He was great. He told us all about this bird, right? And they have a sanctuary essentially where this bird, I don't remember the name of it, and I could Google it, but I'm not going to. But they have these beautiful red flower or feathers, and that's a lot of what they would use. And they would also use the feathers and make dye out of it and stuff. So it's just really cool. I cannot suggest it enough. When you come visit me, we'll go on that tour, and you'll learn about it too. And also, Kualoa Ranch is very near another place that, if you've seen a lot of movies and you've seen 50 First Dates, where Adam Sandler works, is called Sea Life Park. And that is the coolest place to go. So if you want to touch a turtle, please don't. If you want to touch a turtle, you can pay $3 and feed the turtles at Sea Life Park. You can pay extra money to meet the sea lions and the dolphins, which I won't do because I refuse. And you can learn all about the conservation efforts at Sea Life Park. And that's my only plug for them. You can sponsor me, Sea Life Park. That'd be great. You can hit me up at pleasedon'tkickmeout.com/contact. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I love it. Anyway, to go back to what we've been talking about, I think we've kind of touched on imposter syndrome enough. So let's go to the next question about success, and what success looks like to me would look different to you. So what does success look like to you, and do you feel successful?
It depends on what you're talking about. So like for me in my career, as a zookeeper, successful for me was having bonds with animals was definitely a thing. I worked my way up to lead keeper, and worked my way up into management for zoo education. So yes, to a degree, I feel like I was successful in that career. Towards the end, I didn't feel like it was as fulfilling in what I wanted. So like I said, I definitely needed something more to kind of enrich myself, kind of come back to myself. And that's when I switched to improv. And when I switched to that, it was kind of a whirlwind thing. Just like I really ate it up so quickly and really advanced fast. And like I went from student team to like the house team pretty quickly at my home theater. And, then I was asked to teach, which I was like mind blown. I'm like, I'm still learning this myself. And I was told you'll get better at it if you teach it. And they were right. Yeah. So it's just like, for me, like I said, it's like, I just love learning it and just like constantly getting that reinforcement. It's like, yep, here it is again. Here it is again. Don't forget. Because when you're on stage and you're performing, it very much is like the blood rushing through your ears and you feel like you're like drowning. Right. So it's like, for me, I just kind of go, and to like have that wherewithal for a second. I heard somebody once that was a musician talk about what it's like to play a musical instrument, because I myself don't do it. But they said, when you're watching a video on YouTube and the little red line shows you where it's buffering and where you are in the video, so it's like it never quite matches. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, that's kind of what it's like to play a musical instrument. And so that correlates to a lot of things in life, I feel, and definitely in improv, it's that way. Because when you're improvising, you're not only the actor, but you're also the writer and the director. So while you're performing, you're kind of like doing, patting your head, rubbing your stomach, and you're running it and not trying not to drown. So there's a lot happening. It's like, did I cover these basic things? Do we know who we are to each other? Where are we? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? So you're kind of doing all of that while trying not to drown. So it's kind of like a really crazy like rush. And so to kind of, I really want to get to that point where it's like I can improvise with anyone, because a lot of times I'll improvise with someone who isn't as strong of an improviser, and sometimes I'm like, oh no, so it's kind of like, how do I? Okay, that's all right. Yeah, so it's like that. So I have gotten better at that, but I'm not where I want to be. So yeah, I feel like I do have some level of success, but not where I want to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, may I toot your horn?
Sure, absolutely.
Toot, toot. Okay, so first and foremost, I have said it, I'm going to say it again. I don't understand how you do not have 10,000 followers or more on TikTok. And I'm going to share my screen. Let me pull the tab up first so that we're not looking at my questions, because I want to leave some room for desire. You are so funny. Where did these, so you do this thing called War and Peace.
Yes.
And which I find hilarious. Like I show my husband all the time, like your TikToks, and you have all these characters and like Beau Natural and
Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah, you've got Twinnings, you do tea reviews. Like you're so clever. And of course you're part of Taste the Biscuit. Oh my God, wait, you met Kevin? Wait a second.
Yes. That was the highlight of that day at Animal Kingdom. Yeah, it was like
I'm so jealous. I want to go to Animal Kingdom with you. Okay. Well, yes. Okay. Cool, Scott, my husband. I want to go. Do you still have your military ID by chance? I do. Yes. So did you do the MWR tickets?
No, actually, I didn't even think of that. I am the worst, like I said, for advocating for myself, because I never remember things like this. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, I'm a veteran. I never think of that. I could get discounts, or I could do this or that. And nope, did not even think of that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I want one. Send me one. Pen pals.
One. What? Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're of course listening, I apologize, guys. This is on YouTube. You can check it out at pleasedon'tkickmeout.com. It links to it. It'll be all in the description. But basically what we're looking at right now, I'll describe it because this is an audio medium for your ears. I keep saying earbuds, your ear holes, your listening tubes. So she is at Swift, they are at Swift Brooks on TikTok. Again, I am at Powerline World Tour. We don't know how we started following each other. We just do. And she's lovely. Again, her name is Pam. If you're listening here because you know Pam, I'm jealous. I want to know Pam in person. So I'm just scrolling through her TikTok right now. And another thing we didn't touch on is that you and I are both child-free individuals.
Yes.
And I'll stop my share there. And that's something that I'm quite proud of, in my sense of I have nephews and I love to spoil the crap out of them. And then I love to give them back.
Yes, absolutely. I'm the same way. Yeah. We decided very early on when my husband and I met, we were in college, and for me, there's a lot of mental health issues that are in my family. And
Same.
Growing up, I had like yeah, I'm still learning about all of the trauma type stuff that why I am the way I am. And it's like, oh, that would explain it. And so I knew that there was lots going on there and that I probably did not want to reproduce and pass it on. So, yeah, that was a choice. And I was glad my husband was on board with it as well. He also did not want to have kids. He's an only child. I'm one of four. And of the four that were in my family, just my older brother has had kids, and I just have my two nieces, which I adore. And yeah, that's enough. So,
right. Similar for me. So I have one sibling, she's 4 years older. We're no contact currently. My parents, it was just, my mom, being the way that she is and what I've discovered about myself. I don't really like to speak about my family, but I realized in 2023 that in order to share my truth, I have to. So I'm very close cards with what I do talk about, what I do choose to share. But basically there are autoimmune diseases in my side of the family that I didn't know about really until I met my husband. And so there's addiction, there's mental health, there's Lou Gehrig's, there's a lot of things that could happen down the pipeline. There's lupus, and then I have IBS. Anxiety related IBS. And I have shared my journey a little bit on TikTok. I don't really share a whole lot about me. Only recently have I done that. So I originally started my TikTok for my dog, who I have a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. He's so used to, he's a pandemic dog. And I went to a very ethical and moral breeder. I do believe in rescuing animals. I do not believe that everyone should go get designer dogs. Another popular opinion of mine is backyard breeding hurts everyone.
Yeah.
And so I'll say that. But my breeder, I had reached out to her right before I had to put down my rescue, my Murphy. And it was the hardest thing I had to go through. And so like you, early on in my husband and I's relationship, because I came built in with a dog and he was like, sweet. My husband loves dogs so much, and cats. He loves all animals. Like if you go to a party and you'll turn around and my husband's just in the corner. He's like, oh, dogs. Yeah. And so I have two nephews and they're not through my sister. I just want to say that my sister and I are 4 years apart. I'm the youngest. And I'm the baby. And I'm also a disappointment to my family. And that's why I don't really talk about them on the podcast. But anyway, Jer Bear and Sandy, they are high school sweethearts. Those are my parents. And then I met my husband and he's the middle child of three. And his younger sister is about my same age. And she's awesome. She lives in LA. Everyone that's on that side of the family lives in California, which is another reason why we own a home out there, which is a very beautiful thing. We rent it out right now. And I can't wait to move back. Anyway, so the point with all of this was on our first date, before I even met my husband, I said, I just don't want kids ever. And I knew that about myself. And I don't know if it was because I didn't process with the trauma. Like I had a great childhood in the sense of the moments where I was the center of attention, it was great. But mostly it was my entire life was a trajectory of my sister and her accomplishments and whatnot. And then I was just the punchline at the end was and then there's B. And my dad, he's my Bianca, you're the most creative, the most whimsical, the most charismatic person. We're always proud of you. We've never had to worry about you. And it's but maybe you could have a little bit.
Yeah.
So I chose not to procreate. It is permanent. My husband got a vasectomy last year. I just recently got off of birth control that I've been on, because of all my health diagnoses recently for me. I had a hemangioma in my liver that they found at Tripler, which is a whole different funny story that I'll just share with you sometime on the phone. We'll drink some tea and gab. Hemangiomas, they're benign, but if 1 in 20 people has them, I don't know why I'm touching my breast. 1 in 20 people has them. And also, your liver's over here. I don't drink. I mean, I do drink a lot in the sense of I like to imbibe. I don't take any recreational drugs when I'm in base housing, so I can't. I take my Adderall. I take all of my drugs the way they're prescribed to me. I don't abuse prescriptions. Anything like that. I'm very, very much a rule follower, which is why I'm actually thrive as a military spouse, because I like rules. Rules are great. And so I told him that, and he was like, that's an option. Wait, that's an option? Like, I
Mind-blowing.
thought the next step was,
Yeah.
I told him two things. I want to get married by an Elvis in a drive-through
Oh my
wedding.
God, that's awesome.
And I really, really want to never have children.
Yeah.
And that was just my choice. And so I think I don't want to speak on behalf of his siblings, but I do think that because of our nephews, where they are in an interesting situation where my brother-in-law couldn't care for them. So my in-laws stepped in, and my brother-in-law is doing awesome. Like, it's been 3 years. They like, my in-laws are amazing. My nephews are 8 and 3. And my brother-in-law is a really stand-up dude. I have nothing but adoration and respect for him. Jason is amazing. And my nephews, one just turned 8. The other one is turning 3 this year. And I, like you, have 2 nieces. I have 2 nephews, or I don't know how many nieces do you have?
2.
Just and it's just so fun to spoil them and then be like, yeah. But I get phone calls all the time. Like my Bradley's birthday was like a couple weeks ago, and he was like, because I've known him since he was like knee high to a grasshopper. And I've been with my husband for 6 years. So he was 2 when I met him, and he was learning walks and, all that. And he's counting balls. And I was like, man, this kid's brilliant. And then Andrew popped out of nowhere, and same mother and same father situation. And so now, it's been amazing to watch them grow. It's been amazing to be an aunt, and I prefer it. So if Shay, my sister, does have children in the future, as I do think that's something she desires, not talking to her. If she did have children, I would be very, very happy for her. I would be just as good of an aunt as I am to my nephews, my in-laws, and all of that. And I love kids. The common misconception is that you don't love kids if you're child free. Yeah. And I do, but I like money more.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting in that, especially when you're in your 30s, people just like push that on you. It's like, oh, when are you going to have kids? And it's like, you tell them you're not, they're like, oh, you just are not ready yet. Or, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, not everybody wants kids,
exactly.
And it's like, it's not fair to like, and the thing that just drove me nuts is like, well, you're being selfish. And I'm like, I think it's selfish to have kids with the thought that you can control them and make them be what you want. And I feel like a lot of people have kids for that reason. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, I want to have kids because I want them to carry on the family business, or I want them to take care of me when I'm old. Right. That's putting a lot. That is selfish in my mind. Right. Because you don't know what it's going to turn out, what they want to do with their life. You know what I mean? So it's like that, I think, the selfish reason to have kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to make sure that, like, as we're talking about it, because I don't think you overstepped anything here. I appreciate but to go back to a bunch of your points, there are 2 things that people don't seem to understand, or 4 things actually in this world right now. Queerness and what that means, mental health and what that means, being child free and what that means, and being trans and what that means. Trans men and women as women, whether non-binary or whatever you choose to be. Why is it that society thinks they can talk to us about what's going on down there at all times?
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I don't like being bingoed, as I call it. Right. But I've learned to just take it on the nose, because now I can say, well, it's permanent. And they're like, oh, you'll change your mind. And then here's the thing. I waited until I was 33. My husband was 32. I was 32. I turned 33 last year. So I was born in 1989. I'm older than Taylor Swift. Claim to fame. Fuck you, Taylor Swift. Anyway, but whatever. Anyway, so for me, I used to be very much more offended by it, but now that I'm like off the birth control for my liver and its function, and I'm doing my health and what's right for me, and I know that, like, I care about kids. I don't know about you. They say the biological clock is ticking or whatever. And I waited because they kept telling me I might change my mind. And here's the thing, you can change your mind, and science is amazing. If you really, really, truly want a child, there's so many options, and, there's so many options for it. And I know I'm going to have to raise my nephews. I know I'm going to have to be a big part of their lives. And so for me, I didn't birth them, but they are my babies. And so I will always spoil them. Like, I always care for them. Like, my nephew Bradley is like, he is just, so deeply enamored with me. And I him, because I watched him grow up. Right. And so for me, it's like, why would I want to have a kid for the reason to give my nephew a friend? Like, that's what school is for. That's what his little brother is for. And, they're both happy accidents, and they're a joy. Do I want to sometimes unalive them? Yeah. Because one time my nephew Bradley, and I will, when he eventually, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever he might be in the future or have, I'm going to tell the story and be like, do you remember the time that Aunt Bianca, me, brought Bourdain, my dog, to Christmas, and you shot him with a Nerf gun?
Oh no.
And I said, don't do that. And you cried. And then you said, well, I'm having a hard Christmas. And I said, okay, well, Christmas is hard. Anyway, so I just, it's funny. It's so, kids are wild. So yeah, I agree with you 1000% there. And I don't think it needs to be discussed any further than that, but I think it's really amazing when people just feel the need to tell you about, like, they insert themselves into your marriage, your career, your life, and everything. It's like, bro, let me live.
Exactly.
Because men.
Yeah. And men, it's like, they don't do it to men. They do it to other folks. Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh, and like, okay. So just so one more thing I'll say. My husband, in order to get a vasectomy, had to go sit in a panel with the Army where they said, is your wife cool with it? Do you have a permission slip?
Really?
This could cause cancer. Did you know? And thank goodness he did get it, because we found out that there was something going on down there, and he had to be put completely under for it. Right.
Wow.
So if he hadn't gotten it, we wouldn't have known. And so, yeah, I mean, like, so that's the thing. And there's so many unpopular opinions. Another unpopular opinion is, why, if I don't want them, and I'm taking the birth control, and I'm taking the measures and stuff, why is it 2023? Where are my rocket shoes? Where is male birth control?
Yes. It's so much easier to take the bullets out of the gun than it is to wear a bulletproof vest.
Yes. Thank you.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
I'm probably being rated a 1 as we speak on this podcast. Anyway, I think we've touched about the topic at hand here, which is, of course, imposter syndrome. Unless you've got anything else you'd like to say, let's move on to the best part of the interview.
Sure.
What is one or a few things you're fanatical about, and why?
Wow, there are many things I'm a fanatical about. My husband will tease me and say that I'm a fan of bird feet.
What?
Yeah, he'll make fun of that all day. When I was in college, became obsessed with bird feet and beaks, and basically just the different functionality of them and how they're very specialized for where they live and what the job is that they do in the environment. So, just a bird is a bird as a bird, but not really, right? So it's like you have your ones that have the tweezer type beaks. You have your ones that have the shovel type beaks. It just depends on what they eat and the feet to match. It's like, are they a swimmer? Are they a wader? Are they a grasper? So it's just it's really, yeah. And so I will fixate on things like that, and my husband just makes fun of me for it. So
that's
no one
so
else
cool
about that.
Okay, well, I'm going to start asking you about bird feet and beaks. I love that.
There you go.
And we've kind of touched on some unpopular opinions, which I say, as long as they're not racist or homophobic, and it's not inclusive, you can say whatever the hell you want. For example, up until recently, I thought cantaloupe was trash. But you know what? It's really, to me, I've just never had a ripe one, and still living on islands. So I will say that I no longer think cantaloupe is trash. I think my unpopular opinion for today, I know I said I had one and then I didn't say it. And of course I forgot it because ADHD. I'll say this. I don't want to be ageist when I say this, but TikTok's for everyone except
Yes.
for under the age of 18. I believe you shouldn't be on it. You shouldn't have your children on it.
Yeah.
And also like you should be old enough to have know the consequences of the fact that China is now tapping your phone. Okay. So like you need to know that like your information is not safe or protected, and there is a national security threat. And yes, I know, and my husband hates it, but my popular opinion is you need to know what you're signing up for before you put something on the internet, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I think I remember when you asked me to fill the form out, just a weird quirk about me and like an unpopular opinion or whatever. And another thing my husband will make fun of me for is that when I get dressed for the day, it's like, I wouldn't say it's like a uniform because that's kind of going back to the military, but it's basically like a skin, like a second skin. And once it's on, I don't want to take it off. So like if because I had to get dressed, because I worked, right? So I had my scrubs on, working at the doggy daycare place. So I had to like take it off. And I was so unhappy about that, because it's like, yeah, it's a weird thing. And so like, especially socks, like if you have shoes and socks on and you need to change them, like as a zookeeper, that was the worst part of the day was when you had socks. Well, I don't mind them, but it's like, you'd have to change socks because,
yeah. Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's like, to me, it's like, and then you'd have to put your other pair of socks back on. And to me, it was like putting on a used snake skin. It didn't fit properly. So it's like not a fresh sock again. You know what I mean? So it's like the first time you put a sock on, it's like brand new. It molds to your skin or whatever. But then when you take it off and then you have to put it back on, that is like gross to me. It makes my skin crawl.
I have weird sensory stuff like that in the sense of, like when you open a book and you crease the page, that noise makes my skin crawl.
Interesting.
And it like gives me a shudder, like just thinking about it, I'm like, ooh, heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Or you get out of the shower and my dog loves to lick. He's like,
yeah. Yep.
And I hate that feeling of wet on wet. So I am not a sock person and I've never have been. And the reason why is because I run very warm. So when but I also like, I'm more of a flats person, like, and I use Gold Bond powder. Okay. Like, don't come for me. I'm more of a flats person. And like you, I feel that when I put something on for the day, that is my uniform, quote unquote. And that uniform for me is, this is what I'm going to podcast in. I'll change my shirt. I'll change out my outfit for whatever the activity might be. I'll probably actually wear this shirt. I don't care. And because I don't want to do laundry twice. I'm also very echo in that sense. Like I just don't want to. So for me, like I hate having to switch to something different. Right. Barbies growing up, like I put them in the suit and I'm like, that's your activity for the day, bitch. You're going to work. So I think that's really an interest. I have never thought about it like that. I like that. Yeah. That was wholesome. I like it. No, it's not weird. Get the fuck out of here. That's not weird. I'm sure people think that's fine. I had someone come on one time and what did they say? They said I've heard some wild unpopular opinions, but one of them recently just blew my dang mind so hard. I almost passed away. I was just like, what? I've never seen that. One time I had a guy that was like, I don't like cheese. And he's like, but I love pizza. I was like, how does that work?
Yeah.
How, what?
Because there's things attached to it maybe, so it makes it different.
He was from Portugal. That's the only thing his name is Migs. And he's a musician and he's on TikTok. He's at Migs Music. Cool. But I found him through a different service. It's funny how we're all on TikTok. To go back to that point, we're all on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, where the fuck you at? Anyway, next question is exciting. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Have you thought about this?
I'm sure I have, because I remember filling the thing out.
Okay. Which I I need to talk to my person to figure out like why it's not happening. Cause I am like, make it make sense why I don't get an email response. And then I have to like search. You're not the first person that's had that happen.
Really?
Google Forms. It's 2023. Where are my rocket shoes? Where's my male birth control? And why don't I get an email when someone fills out my form fill? I probably just need to switch to Typeform, to be honest. Anyway, which is a different service. If you were a Muppet, which one would you be and why?
I really had to think about this one because I grew up with the Muppet Show, and gosh, I totally loved Kermit growing up. But the more I thought about it, and I actually did research, and I like looked up each Muppet, and I was like, I am the Swedish Chef, and there's reasons for it.
Okay, let's go. Woo! Okay. That's the first time I've heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's interesting in that I was reading about the puppet and the puppeteers that did it because it was Jim Henson did the head and Frank Oz did the hands. So in a way, it was improv. And there's a game that they play where one person is the head and then somebody comes behind them and puts their hands and they do stuff. So I'm like, oh my God, it's an improv. It's improv in real life. And so Frank Oz would do things to mess with Jim Henson and he'd have to react to it. So he'd pick things up and throw it or whatever. And he'd be like, oh, I didn't need that anyway or whatever. And so I feel like that in basically everything I do. Like I feel like life, I try to be professional and I'm just like, yep, when it's whatever, it just kind of happens, and I think I skipped there for a second.
No, you're fine. Wait, just say it again.
Okay. So yeah, I just feel like in life, just like things happen, you're just like, oh, I meant to do that anyway. So yeah, I just feel like that is just kind of like how life is and why improv is so like a thing for me. Yeah. But yeah, and his crazy accent, and I love accents and love playing with them too.
I know that about you. You know what? The second you said Swedish Chef, I was like, that makes so much sense. Hey, to anyone younger that didn't grow up with the Muppets, I'm so sorry. What world were you living in? And it's really funny. Tom Shaw, I just had on the podcast because I'll be releasing yours the week after. Oh, I'm going to link it. Here you go. Tom Shaw. He grew up in that time frame, but he just never really watched the Muppets. And he was like, I couldn't tell you anything about the Muppets and I didn't Google it. And I was just like, that's second question to this. And this one's on the fly. Okay. Because you like improv.
Yes.
If it's a puppet, you can fuck it. What Muppet would you fuck or sleep with and why? And it can be anything in the Jim Henson spectrum.
Gotcha. Oh, wow. Interesting. Huh. Wow.
Think on it. I've got answers.
You do?
Well, so when you said Swedish Chef, I thought, okay, I've thought about this a lot, like more than someone should.
Yeah.
Originally, I said Statler and Waldorf, 2 for the price of 1. Hecklefuck.
Oh, hey.
Right. Eiffel Tower, where they're going, oh, yeah, from the balcony. Then I've had a lot of Kermit. People say a lot of Kermit. And I think Kermit would be too much of a soft frog for me. No. No one said Rizzo the Rat, but it's starting to really, really do it for me. Rizzo's got an energy that's very...
Yeah.
But then, you could fuck the whole band.
Yeah, really? I was thinking like, yeah, I remember like Dr. Teeth, just being super cool, Zoot with the sax and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Gosh,
that's okay. I'm gonna pull up Muppets and share my screen. And
maybe Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, because like my husband is bald and he's a scientist. So
okay. That's the first time I've gotten that response. So for anyone who's not listening on YouTube, you won't be able to see this share screen. So I'm going to first Google Dr. Honeydew. Is it Dr. Honeydew?
Yeah. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, yes. Or Bunsen Honeydew. Yeah, Bunsen Honeydew.
You could do 2 for the right price of 1. If you're really into threesomes and swinging that way, you could have Beaker too, because my husband wants to fuck Beaker. And the reason why is because he wants to know if he meeps outside of the set.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. Right. My answer originally was Fozzie Bear, because he'll bring a pie, he'll have a hat, a scarf, and nothing else. And that when he gets ready to have his big sparky explosion, he's going to say, waka waka. And
That's
you can go,
awesome.
oh, okay, good. Oh, you're almost there. Cool. I'm out of here. Okay, so let me see. How do I share my screen? Boop, share screen. Okay, so I remember in Walt Disney World in the 90s when I got to go as a kid, because I'm a Disney slut. I love Disney. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew was in the Muppets, like the Muppets Hollywood studio. I think where they had like a different ride where it was just like, I might be making this up. I don't remember.
I don't remember seeing him, but that we just did the interactive 3D thing that they had there, but I don't remember seeing him. I could be wrong.
I haven't been there since you were in Panama.
Okay.
So like that was a long time ago. For me, I
Yeah.
was 6 and then I was 8 and
Gotcha.
Okay, so we've got so let me describe him for people who are listening to this audio medium instead of, okay, so we're at Muppet Wiki, muppet.fandom.com. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew is the resident scientist on the Muppet Show and the host of Muppet Lab sketches. Please don't give me an ad. Thank you. Go away. Collapse. Okay. What else? Oh, that's a great O face right there.
God.
I don't even remember what his voice sounds like. Here's both of them. We've got Beaker. Beaker is his assistant who always goes me.
Yep.
And the source of many memes. And typically just looks very upset.
Yeah.
Here they are in the Muppet Christmas Carol. That's on Disney Plus for anyone that's never seen a Muppets in their life. Here he is finding the clitoris.
Oh my God.
I'm so sorry. You didn't think I was going to go here. I apologize.
Oh, I didn't.
This is rated spicy.
Yeah.
Oh, here he is.
Getting ready.
He's getting ready for sexy time. He's about to take off his lab coat, and you gotta wonder what's under there.
Exactly.
And here they are figuring out who's next at the gangbang. That's what's under there.
There you go.
Wow.
He's a ripe melon.
Yeah. A bald man really does it for me. A secure bald man. Yeah. My husband has very healthy head of hair.
Nice.
It's not a flex. In fact, that man, his dad, never going to go bald, and neither is his mom. And my dad's the same way, like a huge head of hair, but like I've dated a lot of bald and beautiful people. And for me, I'm like a secure bald man. There is nothing more confident than a Mr. Clean man.
That's absolutely right.
It really is. And yeah, I love that. And it's also, let's just say a popular opinion here. If you're going bald, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy originally said, embrace it. Don't try and get away with it. Baby, your genes are telling you can't have the hair. And that's okay.
My husband said he's got too much testosterone. It just blew the hair off of his head.
Beaker.
Yep.
I love it. Oh, my friend, we are winding down on this beautiful conversation. The next question before we go, just to before I let you promote what you want to promote, which I'm sure is your TikTok and everything else about you that makes you you. What's currently making you happy in the world?
I got my first job out of the pandemic recently, and going back working with animals to any kind of capacity is super enjoyable. There's lots of French bulldogs and pit bulls in the area, and so I love dogs with like squishy faces and heads. So that's really rocking my world right now. Just being back in the public like that, kind of making some money, not the best, but just something to do.
It's not about the money. It's not about the
Exactly.
money. That's what I tell people all the time. If you can find your passion, like I do this and I make $0. Well, I made 17 last year. Big roller. I can buy you 1% of gas out here at the MWR. Maybe I'll buy a snack. I might have some change left over. Anyway, That is amazing. I love that you're doing that. I've actually thought about maybe becoming a dog groomer, because I've got Bourdain, my groomer, because we weren't sure if Scott was going to stay in the military, and we weren't sure if we were going to have money coming in, because shock and awe, people, I haven't had a job in over 3 years, and it's not because I have not tried. It's because I live on Hawaii, and they prefer to hire locals and Kama'aina. And while I am Kama'aina, I also had a commute that would have put me in the car from 4 a.m. until I died.
Yeah.
Because it's an island and everyone's going the same place, right?
Yeah.
So it's not for lack of trying. So that's why I podcast instead. It's much more fulfilling for me, makes me happy. I get to connect with beautiful people like Pam, who is obviously going to come visit me now. So I've thought about maybe, getting into grooming and stuff. TikTok is amazing in the sense that I think it's better than a search engine, because it's like, you can find, I think it's better than YouTube. Don't cancel me, YouTube, please. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please don't kick me out.com. Yeah. And so what else is making me happy in the world? Well, my friend Melissa, she is on TikTok, Melissa B Creations. She is someone who found me on TikTok many moons ago. She is also a fellow military spouse living out of Virginia Beach. And she made me these 2 beautiful tumblers you've seen me sipping out of, because I have ADHD and I always have to have a drink. How you never took a sip of anything blew my mind, just out of my head. I have
water too, but it's just, I'm pacing myself.
Oh, well, I usually have to piss like a racehorse after this. And she made me this other one because my husband was very mad that he wasn't on it. So she put that front and center because she's funny. This is just my puppy, because he's not coming to the screen. That was isn't this sweet?
That is very sweet.
You can find all that information. She's an unofficial sponsor of this podcast, because I would never ever charge her money. In fact, she charges too little for these, $25 plus shipping.
Wow.
Melissa, they're heavy duty.
Nice.
ASMR.
Yeah.
They're great. They are hand wash only. She makes them herself. In fact, she takes the metal and no, just kidding. She doesn't do that. But they come with a straw, which I didn't know. So I was recording yesterday and I was like, dang, these are really hard to drink out of. And then I was organizing my closet at 2 a.m, as one does, because I couldn't sleep. And I'll pop these 2 straws and they hit me in the head. And I was like, what are those? And I was like, oh.
Ooh, straws.
Ding, 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 light bulb. So yeah, that's making me happy. What else is making me happy? Okay. I haven't done it yet, so I might as well do it. I have merch. Please don't kick me out.com/shop. Live your 90s fantasy with me. Then we've got laptop cases in 13, 15, and 17 inch. You can go to please don't kick me out.com/shop. It's the best laptop case ever, because I spilled a whole dang coffee on it once, and it's washable and it's fleece lined.
Nice.
It's great. It's great. It's amazing. We also have fanny packs, which I use a lot. I need to start just like keeping one of everything in here. Fleece blankets if you're feeling a little chilly. Not me, because I live on Oahu, and that's not a brag. What else can I tell you? Another sponsor of mine that makes me happy is I haven't mentioned her in a while, but this is my IBS pill case, and it says, you're doing such a great job taking care of yourself. dashofpep.com. If you go to dashofpep.com, you enter PDKMO podcast. PDKMO at checkout, you get 15% off. And these are amazing. None of these drugs are illicit. They're over-the-counter medications like Pepcid and stuff. So don't ban me. They have like these cute little things, it's in a little carrying case. It comes in gold, black, and pink. Go to dashofpep.com. Nice. And final thing, follow us on TikTok, please, because we'd love to be in the creator account. You can follow Pam at
Swift Brooks.
Or you can follow me at Powerline World Tour, where I have no niche, and neither do you.
I just know I've been like following some like gurus, and I was like, I just had my name like Pam Swift Brooks and at Swift Brooks, and they're like, oh, you need to niche. I'm like, I do, it's comedy characters. And they were like, I said, well, how do you like put your name, what your niche is in your name? And so they're like, so I thought about it and I was like, oh yeah, because no one knows who Pam Swift Brooks is, So I just now put in there, I think it was last night, I put the little teapot emoji.
And it's comedian, celebrity, doppelgangers, hidden snacks, and angry emoji
art.
Painter art.
Yes.
Oh, that's what that meant.
Yep. So I did that. Yeah. And then so yeah, where it's like your nickname, I guess, I put I have the little teapot emoji and it says tea time comedy characters. So
Oh, see, that's
yeah.
smart. I've got more advice for you there. My profile says, let me go to it. Mom. Wait, dog mom, Disney, LGBTQIA plus flag, elder millennial, OG biscuit talk. We haven't even talked about Taste the Biscuit because we don't need to. Taste the biscuit. Anyway, yeah, taste the goodness of the honey. Don't get that honey, that's not me. I like the way it tastes my mac and cheese.
There was a dog named Biscuit at the kennel yesterday or 2 days ago, and I thought of you. And I was singing that song to the dog.
Can you take video of the dog and put it on TikTok, or are you allowed to?
Ask
permission because I think you should.
Yeah.
Other thing I'll say there is I'm just happy that I met you. I don't know what brought you to me, but it's I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it. Yeah. So without further ado, this has been Please Don't Kick Me Out, an inclusive podcast about imposter syndrome. If you like what you hear, of course, please like, share, rate, etc. I realized I didn't say that my friend Laura made my merchandise, but she also hosts my website. She has a company where she helps queer and women-owned businesses with UX design, branding, and all of it. She is amazing. Also, I found out today she knits. What? Awesome. And you can find her at Space Age Betty Page on Instagram. Or you can find her at yaygraphicdesign.com. Tell her I sent you. She's amazing. And that's my last plug. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Pam. Yeah, I appreciate you. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.